Hey, what's up? What's up? Love and light. Hope you're feeling balanced and beautiful. This is life. That's with a Y. So that's learn yourself forever emerge. This is truth and light, and we're gonna get into Christmas today and just kind of bust down the origins, where it comes from, and I'm gonna show you that this is specifically a northern region, like north of the equator type of holiday, and basically just busting down why we still do it, because a lot of people know what they do, and some people can even explain to you how to do the things that they do, but not oftentimes, or oftentimes not everybody can explain why they do the things that they do. Like, why? What's the purpose? What motivated it? What moved it into becoming? And this season, this time, this is a very auspicious time. I mean, it had to be charted even in the old days, and so I guess that's where we could start, just by saying that this thing that we're doing here is key to civilization, culture, and all those type of things. So basically, what's going on is it's measurement and timekeeping. That's a way you can. That's what it is. But for this conversation, let's look at it as that specifically: measurement and timekeeping, and knowing that astronomy in itself, this stuff is based on stars. So astronomy is key to civilization. Like, even houses, when you build the houses and stuff, they usually put the windows on the east and the west, and that allows the sunlight to actually come into the building. Stuff like that, even little stuff. And on a deeper level, all this stuff has to do with within, all itself. So look at it as that, related to yourself and how your body works, because it is telling you specifically how your body works. But all that stuff is really complicated to understand, and it's not really for, let's say, children. You could say it's kind of difficult. It's science. And so when you're looking at it at that point, you get all those difficult words and stuff. Sometimes it's easier to look at things in a playful thing that you can relate it to, which is where the holidays and stuff come in. It's called anthropomorphism. It's when you basically put a personality on top of something that does not have a personality. Like when we put shows on for our children, and we have all the vegetables speaking and they have personalities, but we know that doesn't really exist. That's called anthropomorphism. It helps you understand something. So with all these stories that we keep surrounding off of, like the 25th and Christmas and all this stuff, it's some deep stuff going on with it. And I'm gonna break this into parts, but this one we're gonna focus specifically on just the astronomical happenings that's going on within our specific nebula, our specific galaxy, our specific universe. And that's pretty much the basis of all the rest of the stuff. So we'll start there. Again, this is measurement and timekeeping. Like the yeah, let's start with the solstice, actually. So what's going on is the sun rotates around the earth, what, 365, and that's what we're basing it off of. And we have these 2 points that the sun has that are called solstices. It's the summer and the winter solstice. They happen on, you can see right here, it happens on the June 21st as well as December 21st. We just passed the December one, so that's called the winter solstice. And solstice means sun standing still. It's Latin. So what's happening is we're definitely rotating around the sun, and we have different seasons because of our specific axis to its orbit in relationship to our position towards that sun. This creates like summer, winter, long story short. And from June 21st, from that summer solstice, that's our hottest day of the year. It's also the longest day of the year. And from that point on, from that summer point, the days start to get shorter. Every 7 days, the sun actually decreases by 10 degrees within our sky. So every week, basically, it gets 10 minutes shorter. And then it passed to equatorial points, which would be the vernal and the what's the other one? Autumnal, not equinox. Yeah, it is equinox. Sorry, it's the autumnal and the vernal. Which the vernal, this actually is what Easter is, and that really is the New Year. That's what New Year really is, because you don't start off in death and decay and cold. You actually start off in spring, like springing into action. So really, that's the official New Year of the planet, of nature. And once it passes that equatorial point from that longest day, now we have equal amount of daylight and sunlight. And then from that point on, the sun is actually going below the equator. Now, for people in the northern hemisphere, obviously this means that we're going to get less sunlight and it's going to start getting dark and it's going to start getting cold. And specifically, what happens in the next few months are pretty important if you didn't have things to look all this stuff up. And now we have all these phones and gadgets, but back in the day, this was important to our ancestors because they didn't have that stuff. So they had to really observe. And what they noticed was certain patterns that continually happened that basically allowed them to identify that they're in a loop, like a cycle, like repeated things that continually just kept happening, which is what I mean when I say measurement and timekeeping. It allowed them to notice certain happenings were happening. And again, this is all relationship to how your body works too. That's really important to understand. I'll probably break that in the next episode. But what's happening with the stars from October to November to December, the constellations that are really important are known as Sirius, Taurus, and Orion. And with Sirius, let me see. Got a picture in here somewhere. Oh yeah, by the way, see, this is a nice view of the thing I was talking about with the summer solstice and the winter solstice and the equinox. So you see here it's equal sunlight, equal daylight, and this is just how it's how we're rotating around the sun. But during the October seasons, I think specifically November 22nd to December 24th, we have what's called the helical rising of Orion. So Orion is known as the Jed pillar, and I will say that the blah blah, the Jed pillar, like the Jedi, the Jed pillar is symbolic of your spine. That's what it basically was to our ancestors. It's your spinal column, your energy, your base that travels all the way up to your brain. That spinal cord, it's really essential to our life, our electrical system basically. And so you have this helical rising of Orion, which right here you see how they're raising the Jed pillar. It's not standing by itself. So even the stars in the cosmos is doing that. And watch what happens with the planet once this happens, because it's very symbolic. You have the Jed pillar raising from November 22nd to December 24th, and it starts to stand up like this. It starts to stand up tall and straight and proud and true. And this was also known as, what is it, the hunter. They have all these other type of names because it kind of looks like a person shooting an arrow. Has those famous stars in it, Regal, Betelgeuse. It even has the three kings. So that belt that you see in the middle, that three, that is called Orion's belt. It's also known as three kings, and the three wise men. All these stories. And so basically, continuing along, you also have the star Sirius in the sky. That this is where we're getting that twinkle twinkle little star from. Sirius is the brightest star in our night sky. Specifically around this time it gets easier to see, and that's due to Sirius basically being the closest star to us. It's the closest star. You want to look into that, you want to look at the Dogon tribe. They have a lot of information about that star, as well as there's this book you can get called Sirius Mystery. It really goes down on what the Dogons were talking about with that star. And without getting too deep into the star itself, just know that star is also moving in the night sky. And to the Egyptians, it was the Hykuptans, the Egyptians. It was really, really important to them, because what they noticed with this star is every January 1st, that countdown we're doing, that 10, that 9, that 8, into that January 1st hour, that is when Sirius is actually reaching what's called its midheaven, which is the highest point in the sky for that star. And not only that, but January 20th, Sirius is in the night sky for the longest amount of time. And this is also when we have our presidential inauguration. So you see, we're basing a lot of things on this energy that is happening in the stars, because it's a sense of renewal, a sense of growth. Because obviously, from the winter time, that's when things are slowly starting to pick back up again. That's what the winter solstice is all about. It's about that death of the sun, which is, if I can show a picture of that, that's what this is over here. It's that death of the sun around this time. And on the winter solstice specifically, for 3 days, when you observe the locations of the sun, you'll see that there's a constellation that's in the sky. Even it looks like a four-pointed thing. It's called the Southern Crux, and it basically sits close to this star for like 3 days. And after 3 days, it rises a little bit, and once that happens, it starts to finally spin again. I wish I had a picture of that more clearly, but you'll have to look into that yourself. But just look at like sun charts and the sunset charts, and how it goes just decreases by about 10 minutes. And around this time, it sits there for a little bit, and it starts to raise on the 25th. And from the 25th onwards, it starts to, well, you can look at the Tropic of Capricorn. That's where it sits at. And then it raises after the 25th up towards the vernal equinox, which is the equator, which is the new year, that time around March 21st. So from this 25th point, it's basically known to our ancestors as the death and the rebirth of the sun. That's what they kind of known it as. They said it was dead on the 21st, and on the 25th, they said that it was the rebirth of our sun. And it raises and raises for the next few months. And what was I saying before? After it, yeah, with the president thing, that's all that stuff that's going on with that. It's basically, it's a time of renewal, rebirth, regrowth, and it's basically entering that Capricorn stage, which, if you know anything about that zodiac sign and Saturn, it's all about that. And the last but not least, there's the great Big Dipper and the Little blah blah. Can't even say that. The Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, which is in the air, pretty visible around this time. It's very visible around this last 3 months that we just headed into, and it has Polaris, which is a navigational star in the sky. And that's pretty much some of the astronomical stuff that's happening with Christmas. And all of these energies basically produce specific cultures and holidays, and all these other type of measurements and timekeepings to basically keep that civilization going, as well as understand the relationship it has to how your body works, because this is how your body works too. I'm gonna get that into the next video, as well as the fact of, in order to have culture, you need to know when to plant, when to grow, when the sun's going to be dying, because the sun's really important to mammalian life on Earth. Like, we're hot-blooded, and we thrive off of that sun. So that's pretty much it. Get you on the next video.